particular exhibition was partly picking up on the big painting challenge, simply because people would perhaps want to see what the judge could do, and they can come along and judge the judge. The critics that I read when I was young, and the sort of talk that one got in at the Slade about painting, was about whether an individual painting was any good compared to another individual painting within that sort of genre. And I hope that the television programmes bring some of that back, because there's a huge amount of enjoyment to be had from figurative painting, which people are sort of not allowed to get anymore. In this exhibition there are 3 sizable-ish landscapes, lots of little landscapes, some of them in snow, some of them spring, little farm scenes. There are still lifes, which are just bits of grot really from around my studio, but suddenly look absolutely fantastic because of the light on them. And there are girls that I've paid to paint who are really sort of representing the loss of my youth, I think, at the time I painted them. There are no commissioned portraits in this exhibition. The portrait of Martin Gayford is here, but it's sort of slightly separate from the rest of the exhibition. Martin Gayford is one of the few critics that actually talks about figurative painting and talks about the content of the painting. He's written about Van Gogh and Constable in Love and Michelangelo, a massive great tome on Michelangelo. He's a great brain, and I think it made me a bit nervous.
She's one of 4 people I've sat for portraits, who are, the others being Lucien, Freud, Jonathan Yeo and David Hockney, and of those 4, Daphne was without question the strictest. Lucien Freud's got a reputation for being rather fearsome. Actually would always say every 35 minutes or 40 minutes would say let's take a rest, and we'd have a chat, a cup of tea or something. Daphne had to be reminded that we needed a rest, so sometimes if my leg was going numb or something, I would plead to be allowed to stop posing, and she would relent.
He actually is an interesting looking person. His character is quite soft. He's very gentle sounding. He's big, tall, but he's very gentle sounding and slightly shambolic how he walks and has his hair and things. Very much a sort of university don in a way. But when he's thinking, which is what I ended up painting, he looks really fierce. And that sort of contrast, I wondered if I could get both into the painting. I'm not sure for others to say whether I did, but it was that contrast that excited me.
She's got me in a much more sort of private mood, as I say, lost in thought, and it's a slightly sombrer picture than any of the other painted portraits. Lucien's etching is a bit like that, actually. It's a bit different from the painting. There's this other side to Daphne, which she does all these pictures which aren't portraits, subject painting, still life, and landscapes.
The landscapes are all painted on the little farm that my husband and I have. In the wilderness, that is a spinney, a little collection of trees round an almost silted up pond. It's totally wild. To get to it, I had to climb through a hole in the fence. And it's a largish painting, and I had to sort of bundle it up with baling twine from the farming enterprise. And I had a sort of structure in this spinney where all these trees had all been bent by the wind. And it just looked magical, to be honest. The only creatures ever in there, the odd rabbit, but there's nothing for them to eat because it was muddy actually underfoot, and deer which shelter in there. As with everything in nature, things change. All the leaves came out too much, it just became dark in there. And I waited, like I have with other paintings of trees, for the same time earlier this year. When I went, I found a tree had fallen down. We'd had some high winds, a tree had fallen down on the place I was sitting. I had that cleared away, and blow me, or blow that actually, the tree I was painting had also broken separately on a subsequent occasion. And that was the thing I was going by. I had 2 plumb lines hung on that tree because there were no straight lines in this landscape, and I had nothing to know whether I was in the right place or whether the shapes were right. And I've left the plumb lines in the painting, actually. A lot of people paint landscapes and they don't have to be exact. Mine are exact. I paint a landscape the same way as I paint a brick, is the same way as I paint a portrait. They are portraits of those trees, in those conditions, in that place. It seems to be a perfectly valid thing to do, to want to try to catch that. It's always different seeing it on a wall, beautifully framed, and you sort of think, oh, they don't look too bad. Whereas in the studio, I tend to want to go on or discard them, or, you know, one's looking at them with a view to doing something. Here I'm looking at them, you know, there's nothing more one can do. It means I can move on. Here they are, they're fine. Hopefully some of them at least will go out in the world, and each painting's got to fare for itself. I already know what I've started, 1 or 2 things, you know, in the studio and round the farm, and I've, you know, I've got portraits to do, and so it's very useful. I don't have to come back to them and worry about them. They're done.